Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How you doing, man? I miss you. You can't do this to me. We're good? You having a party outside today? Every day? Alhamdulillah. It's a good community to be in. You guys partying all the time. Look at that. Someone teaching Arabic too. That's the Sheikh, right? Huh? That's your board, right? Yeah. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Barakallahu feek. You got me the natural spring water. Jazakallah khairan. Okay. Still 9:45, right? Do we have to split you guys? Because I don't like doing that, but I know the adults are going to be upset with us. Assalamu alaikum. Pull it up. Is this better? All right. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of everything in existence. We ask Him to bless His messenger Muhammad, to elevate his mention and rank, and to shower him with protection and grace, along with his family and his righteous followers until the last day, as He did with Ibrahim, his family and righteous followers in the past. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم اجعل ما تعلمناه حجة لنا لا علينا. We ask you, Allah, to teach us what benefits us and to allow us to benefit from the things that we learn and to increase us in knowledge. We ask you to make the things that we learn an evidence for us and not an evidence against us. So welcome to another session of prophetic stories, illustrations of life, where we're covering specific events from the life and times of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're trying to extract certain lessons from them so we can apply them in our day. Combat has been mandated onto you, and it is disliked by you. It's not something that's fun. So that's the backdrop to the story. This is a young man full of zeal in the beginning of his life, and his name is Usama. Usama ibn Zayd. He was about 16 years of age. So according to Islam, he's an adult, because adulthood in Islam is once you reach the age of puberty, and the cutoff line for that, regardless of how delayed your puberty is 15 years of age. So he was 16, he was already an adult, so he is responsible, he is accountable according to the laws of Allah. Now, he may have been the youngest person in this particular expedition, and it may have been the first time he ever engages in battle. That's important to consider. So a first timer, a rookie, if you will, just coming into this particular environment. And whenever they met with their enemy, his thing was, I want to look for the baddest guy on the other side and I want to go after him. So that was his intention. Again, being young, being excited, being maybe full of yourself, that's natural. So he says, I want to look for the baddest guy on the other side and I want to go for him and I want to take care of him, basically. So they saw a man who was really tough, and whenever the pagans would attack the Muslim army, he was really all the way in the front. And then whenever they retract, so in Arabic it's called al-karru wal-farr. I don't know what it's called in English. You charge and then you retreat. Is that what it is? How do you know? You play video games, don't you? No? Okay, so when they charge, this guy is in the front. When they retreat, he's defending his people. And whenever this guy decides to fight with a Muslim, he takes him, he kills him. So the guy was extremely bad on the battlefield. Now, Usama decides, I'm a young man, I'm going to go with another one of the Ansar. And we said the Ansar are the people who live in Medina. We said they're called the supporters. I like to call them the sponsors. They're the ones who hosted the immigrants and the refugees. So they said, we're both going to go and gang up on this guy and just take care of him because he is giving us a hard time. All of this is the backdrop to the story. When they charge him, he shouts and he says, La ilaha illallah. What is La ilaha illallah? La ilaha illallah is the statement of faith in Islam. And La ilaha illallah protects you. Anyone who says that has to be protected even in the middle of the battle. That's very powerful. So he shouts it. So now the other guy, the guy from the Ansar, he hides his sword. But then Usama looks at this and he's like, this guy is just afraid of getting killed. Basically, he doesn't mean it. And what he did was basically, I'm looking at this guy, he just killed a few of our people. And again, anyone, whether it's your family or your community, or even sometimes your company, whenever you're competing with somebody else, your team is very, very close to your heart. So they had just witnessed some of their own friends and compatriots dying before their eyes, and this guy was the cause for that. So they decide, we're going to take care of this guy. And what he did was actually kill him. The guy dies. This is the night of the pagans, and the whole army basically retreats because he was their leader. So basically they get defeated. So this is the beginning of a defeat and a victory for the Muslim community. A man came telling the messenger of God the news and coming with a bushra. And we said bushra is good news, is glad tidings. It's something that affects you and impacts you, that it leaves an effect on your facial expressions. You become happy. And he tells them, "O messenger of God, we were victorious. We won the battle." And he tells them the details. He's reporting back basically. And again, this is something very important. Always report back. If you have superiors, you must report back. You have parents, report back. If you don't report back, there's going to be missing links and you're going to get into trouble. So the community always reported back to the messenger of God. So for what reason? It's called quality assurance. Whenever you call a company, what do they say? This call may be monitored for what? Quality assurance purposes, quality control. So when you report back to your superiors, they're going to tell you if what you did is right or what you did is wrong. If it doesn't get reported, what happens? Why do we hear about corruption in the world, in different places? It's because people decide not to report back. The whole department is not necessarily corrupt. But if somebody decides to hide a mistake or not report back fully, something's going to give. And it's going to have a negative consequence. So one of the things that the guy reported back was how did this guy eventually get killed? And how he made a statement that was protecting him from being killed, yet he was still killed. The messenger of God hears the story. And he summons Usama ibn Zayd. Now let's give a background on who Usama ibn Zayd is. You guys know who this guy is? Usama ibn Zayd is called Ibnu Hibbi Rasulillah. Hibbu Rasulillah. Hibbu Rasulillah means the beloved of the messenger of God. Now, people, a lot of us in the Muslim community, we say Rasulullah is our beloved. Right? We love the messenger of God. Now, this guy had the title that the messenger of God loved him personally. And he was the son of Zayd. Who is Zayd? Is that your name? What's your name? Sa'ad. Okay, like another one of the Sahaba. Zayd is the only man that is mentioned by name in the Quran from the Muslim community. فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا. In Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter number 33, Allah mentions this man by name. His name growing up was Zayd ibn Muhammad. But based on the verses I just shared, or in a few before them actually, in chapter 33, adoption as in making the child take your name and claiming him as your biological child became a banned practice in Islam. You still can sponsor orphans, you can take care of them, but you cannot attribute them to yourself. They're not part of your lineage. A lot of people get these things confused. Adoption is fine as long as you say the truth. Don't lie to the child and tell him I'm your father. And also don't lie to the public and say you're his father. You're his father as in you take care of him and you support him, but you're not their biological father. So Zayd was one of the first Muslims. Do you remember the story when we say, who were the first Muslims? So the messenger of God is just informed, you become a messenger. His ministry begins. There is different classes of society that accept the call. His wife, from the women folk, Khadija. Ali, from his own family. Abu Bakr, from the men folk. And Zayd was from the servant class, because he was the servant of the messenger, although the messenger took him as an adopted son. So we're talking about someone extremely close to the messenger of God. And this is why we say you don't cut corners. Most corruption, when you hear about corruption, what's the problem? I didn't want to mention this, but again, we're hearing about there's elections happening. And you know that in certain countries, the way the elections work is basically you have a dynasty, a family that continues to run for office throughout history. So the whole political party becomes a face for a particular family. Now the messenger of God is teaching us, no matter how close somebody is, if there is corruption taking place, you're going to call them into account. Even if he's called your intimate loved one, even if he's your own child, you're going to do something about it. You're not simply going to turn a blind eye and say, you know what, I don't want to embarrass him, I don't want to shame him, I don't want to hurt his feelings, because other people's feelings do count as well. We should never be selfish. So he summons Usama ibn Zayd, may Allah be pleased with Usama and with his father. And he says the following, Ya Usamatu aqataltahu ba'da ma qala la ilaha illallah. He says straightforward, in front of people, other people witness this. Usama, did you kill this man after he said la ilaha illallah? La ilaha illallah, there is nothing deserving of worship except for the one true God. The statement of faith in Islam, and that which makes your life sacred and makes it sanctified. Even if you happen to be a combat enemy, if you happen to be a what? Someone in battle with the community. That is a statement of protection. You know, there is something with diplomats, again going back to politics, they call it a diplomatic passport. So you commit a crime in somebody else's country and they don't hold you to account by virtue of what? Your diplomatic immunity. And that's a huge thing. That's why a lot of corruption happens. So somebody goes to somebody else's country, and this has happened, of course, a lot of times our country. They go to somebody else's country, the guy gets drunk, but he works in the embassy, and he runs over a child, and then basically he gets free. How did he get free, although he killed somebody? Diplomatic immunity. If anyone was to have some type of immunity, it should be Usama ibn Zayd. He's got a passport. The Prophet says, did you kill him after he says La ilaha illallah? قال يا رسول الله إنما قالها مخافة السلاح والقتل. Usama is straightforward, honest. Again, he's not intimidated. He knows what he did, and he knows that I have a reason for what I did. So he says, O Messenger of God, he only said it. Innama. Innama in the Arabic language, in grammar, means there's no other reason. So in the Quran, Allah says, time and again, telling the Messenger, tell them, Innama ana basharun mithlukum. Tell them, I am only a human like you. I'm not part divine. I don't have God in me. The only difference between you and I is I receive revelation and I live up to the standard of revelation, and I'm the highest example. Okay? So here he says, he only said it because he was afraid of the weapon that he saw and because he was afraid of getting killed. فَقَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. This is the punchline of the story. أَلَا شَقَقْتَ عَنْ قَلْبِهِ. Did you open his heart up to see what the reasoning for him making that statement was? ألا شققت عن قلبه حتى تعلم أقالها من أجل ذلك أم لا? Did you open up his heart to find out and to decipher whether he said it for that reason that you're saying? Because you're eliminating any other possibility. إنما means there is no other possibility. Are you eliminating that by virtue of you opening up his heart and inquiring about what his belief was? So then Usama wants to justify his action. We're going to learn some lessons here, but it's fine to justify under certain circumstances. But there are certain things, again, that are called red lines and red flags, where you simply have to own up to your mistake and say, I did it. Justification will only get you in trouble. Today, one of my daughters, she did something wrong, and I reprimanded her, and I said to her, you shouldn't do that. But she just went about it like nothing ever happened. I said, so again, it's a teaching moment. So I said, part of learning is that when you make a mistake and you're corrected for your mistake, own up to your mistake and apologize for it. So here we're going to learn this lesson by extension, although the lesson directly was going to Usama. So Usama starts giving his reasoning and his rationale for this man deserving to be killed. Number one, he's a criminal. He's a war criminal. He killed other people. That's a crime, right or wrong? Is this not a valid reason? Someone kills should not be killed. Isn't that what Allah says in the Quran? The crime for those who commit murder, their retribution is for them to pay for it with their own lives. Okay? He says, Ya Rasulullah, awja'a fil muslimin. وَقَتَلَ فُلَانًا وَفُلَانًا. He says, oh Messenger of God, man, he caused us big trouble. He killed so and so and so and so. Again, what is he doing? Trying to work not just the rationale, but also the emotion of the Messenger of God. You know how much the Messenger loved his community? النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. He loved them like their father. Okay? عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. Whenever you experience a difficulty, it is extremely painful for him. حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. This is the description that Allah gives of the Messenger. Very concerned about you. بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Very merciful and compassionate to the believers. So he mentions the people that just got killed. He's like, look, oh Messenger of God, he killed so and so and so and so. And he knows the Messenger loves his community. Because again, remember, I want us to reflect. Because right now, basically, let's just put, we don't necessarily have warfare in America taking place, but we do have a lot of turmoil, let's say with a particular class of people, the cops and certain people. Maybe they're criminal. But now, let's say a cop makes a mistake and does not go through proper procedure, and someone becomes a casualty. This someone, the criminal, was shooting at the cops and he killed a few cops. What's the law right now? If you kill a cop, if you shoot at a cop, they're going to take you out. There's no questions asked. They're not going to arrest you. You just killed one of them, right? And that's it. That's a red flag. In fact, even if you resist arrest, you're basically risking your life. That's something that we are accustomed to. This is not warfare. We're talking about within the country. This is in society. The Messenger of God in this particular event, in the middle of the battle, they're still bleeding, basically. They're still injured, and stuff is still fresh, and he's having this conversation. He mentioned people that the Messenger of God knows. They're the people that used to communicate with him and used to live with him and used to be part of his community. So people that he sees regularly. And again, whenever you know someone and you love them, you get impacted when you lose them. That other guy, the Messenger of God, has no contact with him. No connection. He's completely foreign. Okay, so that's the first thing. He also mentioned people that the Messenger of God used to see. Because we said the Messenger of God, يَأْكُلُونَ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشُونَ فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. Allah describes the messengers. They ate food and they walked in the marketplaces, which means what? They mixed with people. So he's again telling them, look, these guys are your people. You would see them regularly. What else? They are your own army. You're their commander-in-chief. They're only going to defend your mission. Those people just got wasted. Isn't that going to impact the Prophet's emotions? And we've already spoken about how the Messenger was very empathetic. If you want empathy, nothing more powerful than that. He just mentioned people by name. He told them the damage that he was doing. Again, these are all traumatic experiences, and the Messenger is just holding back. The point behind all of this is the crime of killing those believers is a huge crime. This man deserves to be killed. Then the Messenger of God, all that he responded with, so you can give all that rationale. He says, فَكَيْفَ تَصْنَعُ بِلَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ إِذَا جَاءَتْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. What are you going to do with the statement, La ilaha illallah, when it comes bearing testimony on the Day of Judgment? What are you going to do with it? Again, we're going to go here and talk about how we are as a community. This is a guy who was fighting in war. And he says, La ilaha illallah, and he's got to be protected. You cannot hurt him. How about people that have said La ilaha illallah their whole lives? And then we have a small difference with them. How do we treat them? How do we behave? Usama now realizes, I'm in big trouble. One, the Messenger of God is not accepting my rationale. So my excuse is not a valid excuse. I don't have anything to answer. And he recognizes now that whatever I did was a prohibited action. It was forbidden. It was against the commands of God. God is not pleased with it. This is a huge sin. Very quickly, things turn around. The believer is supposed to do introspection. He could have again said, justified it. You have so many reasons to justify it. He realizes, I'm talking to the messenger of God who receives revelation from God. He knows what is allowed and what is not allowed. He just told me there's no excuse for what you did. I don't care how you're going to rationalize it. So then he says, addressing the messenger of God, again, did not argue, owned up immediately. That's part of called what? What is that called? That's the faith that Usama had. He's not rebelling. Many of us, we make a mistake. We know it's so clear and it's so obvious, and yet we still do try to do what? Rationalize it. Make excuses. Why did you run that red light? Well, I was in a hurry and I had to do salah. You still broke a law, right? And we can all check ourselves when it comes to things like that. Do you break the laws, and do you rationalize breaking the law? Usama, may Allah be pleased with him, immediately realizes his mistake. So he addresses the messenger of God and he says, Ya Rasulullah, istaghfir li. O messenger of God, please ask God to forgive me. Istaghfir li means, we said this before, remember the meanings of istighfar? Who remembers the meanings? Come on. We've been doing this for like 29 times, 28 times. I'm going to pick on you guys. What are the meanings of istighfar? So forgiveness, that's one thing. But the first meaning is, you know this thing, it's covering the table? Ghafara means to cover something. So the first thing is to conceal. Because he's ashamed of what he just did. You want Allah to conceal your sin and not to expose you. 2, you want Allah to erase that sin and wipe it out of your record. 3, you want Allah to forgive it and to help you make up for whatever you just did. Because there's always going to be payback. There's compensation. You also never want to do the sin again. That's part of istighfar. So there's so many different meanings to istighfar. So he says, O Messenger of God, please ask God to forgive me. Now, he was waiting for an answer. Usually, other people have said this to the Messenger of God on other occasions. They say, Ya Rasulullah, istaghfir li, and the response is, Ghafar Allahu lak. The Messenger of God makes a prayer. It says, may Allah forgive you. One time, actually, a man told the Messenger, Ghafar Allahu lak, and the Messenger says, walak. So a man says, O Messenger of God, may God forgive you. And he says, may God forgive you too. So the Messenger ﷺ did not say Ghafar Allahu lak. He says, كيف تصنع بلا إله إلا الله إذا جاءت يوم القيامة. Now what's interesting, I'm just reflecting over this. Whenever in a moment of anger and you want to try to correct someone or discipline them, you start shouting. And the more I'm learning, of course the Messenger of God, his method was never to shout. Because shouting actually is counterproductive. And it causes a particular reaction in people. And it humiliates people. The point here was not to humiliate Usama. That's not the intention. It's not about making someone feel terrible or feel little. It's not to destroy their self-esteem. It's to point out the mistake and again for the whole community to benefit. He says, what are you going to do with La ilaha illallah when it comes on the day of resurrection? And then Usama repeats his request, O Messenger of God, please seek forgiveness for me. And the Messenger of God would repeat the same statement. What are you going to do when La ilaha illallah comes on the day of resurrection? Usama felt so bad. I mean, you're talking about depression. This is like your grandfather. Basically, this is his grandfather who just told him, what are you going to answer for? And there is no answer. And the Messenger of God is not praying for him, which is very tough on him. And he recognizes the severity of his sin. Usama says when he narrates the story, he says, I wish I had not become Muslim yet. Why does he make that particular wish? What happens when someone embraces Islam? All their previous sins are forgiven, no matter how big the sins are. So he's like, I wish I had that opportunity that my sins would be wiped out. Because, or wiped clean. Because I am a new Muslim. So basically that's not, you can't just do that. You can't push on a button and say, you know what, I wish I could be a Muslim again. And then you do something wrong. Although this may be like, it's good for like some type of movie. So like some of us, we do something wrong and then we come back and we say, oh, can we make shahada in front of the whole community? Congratulations, I just embraced Islam again and all my sins are forgiven. That's not what it's talking about, by the way. People who leave Islam and come back, their previous sins don't, it's not the same thing. It's about people who were originally not Muslim. They embrace Islam and then Allah, as a gift to them, gives them a clean slate. This particular event remains very heavy on the heart of Usama. And he became so careful and conscious whenever there was any type of internal strife in the Muslim community. And there's been internal strife in the Muslim community, even from the early days. But he decided, you know what, if Muslims are involved, I'm not going to be involved. If there is a fight, you know, sometimes whenever there is a fight, what do people do? Either they just watch, what is that called? Watching falsehood, or they participate. They get involved. He says, I'm never going to get involved because I don't have an answer in front of God to harm another believer. Now, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, you're Sa'd, right? Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Allah be pleased with him, he was old in age. He was one of the earliest Muslims. He makes the following statement: لا أقاتل مسلما حتى يقاتله أسامة. He says, I'll never fight another Muslim until Usama fights with him. Because if Usama fights with him, it means I have a green light. Because Usama basically says, I'm never going to fight with a believer. May Allah bless His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who taught in an excellent fashion and who raised people up to truly know the limits and the boundaries of Allah. We're going to look into some of the lessons now from this particular story. You guys have heard this story before, right or wrong? A lot of us have. This is a very common story that people hear. But what are some of the lessons that we can extract out of it? Number one, Usama is extremely young in this particular battle. And he is volunteering. These are not battles that people had to, there was no draft. Everyone here is volunteering. Draft means it's mandatory. Everyone who's of fighting age, you come and you get into battle. Usama here, although he's young, he felt responsible to protect the community and to be by the messenger's side, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, although people say, well, you know, maybe he was foolish. Nobody came into the battlefield at that time except after full preparation. This is not just for fun. It's like, oh, we're going camping. Okay, hop on. Like right now, if you want to go camping, some expert campers can just put you on with them and take you on their camper. You don't have to prepare. You just get on board. But with battle, there is preparation that takes place before that. Mental, physical, and also spiritual. Spiritual in the sense of you're willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of God. These people were not going there to make money. Again, if you look at most militaries in the world right now, why do people join the military? In our country, why do people join the military? Especially young people. For a free education. They come from poor backgrounds. They come from the poorest neighborhoods. That's where they recruit them from. What's the point? No one actually believes in the mission, except after they get brainwashed, but they're still too young, so it's their formidable years. They don't even know about international politics. And that's why many of them, after they get older, they regret what they did. They're like, we committed war crimes. There was no excuse for that. At the time of the messenger, you don't just join because you just want to fight. He said explicitly, whoever fights for the sake of fighting is going not to paradise. You got to fight for the sake of God. And you got to put your ego aside. And this is what he's teaching us here. So the point here, this young man had complete certainty. He was seeking reward from his Lord. And he basically was allowed to join that believing army, the Prophet's army. What we tell here also is when the Prophet is reprimanding and disciplining this guy, is he was not considered a child. And this is huge. And of course, this is extremely painful for us. Because right now, someone is in their 20s and they still say what? Still small. If they're under 18, still a minor. Don't talk to them like that. Very sensitive. And that's true. They may be that because they were not developed properly. It's not their fault. Whose fault is it? Parents' fault. Society's fault. When society gives an excuse and says you can commit a crime as long as you're a minor and you don't have to pay for it. It's like, okay. So this man had matured mentally. Allah be pleased with him. Which means when the messenger is talking to him, he's not talking to someone who's in adolescence. Because in adolescence, again, people, go up and down. There's hormonal changes and stuff like that. But here, what you're talking about is the messenger of God is actually honoring this particular soldier. He's talking to him like a grown, responsible adult. He could have said, oh, he's so young, he made a mistake, it's okay. He spoke to him with full respect. That's consistent. We said the messenger of God would treat children with respect and would treat adults with respect. There was respect all around in his treatment. The point here is this man, with this particular event, he never forgot that particular event for the rest of his life. Even when he got older, it left a big impact. He says, I'm never going to engage if there is internal strife and believers are fighting with one another. I will not participate. 2, the key lesson here is the sanctity of people's lives. People's lives are sacred and they're sanctified in Islam. No matter what the excuse is. Again, people say, well, he did this to me, she did that to me. Look at people who commit murder. Whether in the battlefield, which right now is like virtual, it's like a video game. You don't even see the people that you're killing. Or in regular life, homicides. People have excuses. They always have an excuse. I was angry. I was upset. There is no reason for sacred blood to ever be spilt. And the companions, the community of the Prophet were fully aware of that because the Prophet had completely done what? Raised them on this particular understanding. There was no doubt about it. People didn't think, well, you know what? Actually, it's like you can make your own decision. It's a judgment call. Who gets killed and who doesn't get killed. The lines were very clear and they were drawn out. And they were not going to mess around with sins. This is a carnal sin. It's a deadly sin. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. Do not take out the life which God has sanctified and made sacred. It's not allowed. This is a fundamental teaching in Islam. They could not take this lightly. In fact, there are certain passages that say whoever kills a believer, what's the consequence? It's very severe. لعنه حرم الله عليه what? لعنه الله. What is it? There's like multiple things. God kicks him out of his mercy, and God's mercy has encompassed everything. Allah prohibits the paradise from them, and he will live in the hellfire forever, and it's the worst of abodes. Terrible. It's one of the worst crimes. That's why some scholars say that it actually may constitute someone disbelieving. Killing a believer may constitute someone disbelieving. This, again, should be so key because right now, most Muslim societies, or a lot of them, have a lot of internal strife. And who's killing who? Muslims are killing Muslims, right? This is not a joke. It's not a game. So right now I was mentioning the elections earlier. Last week, because of the elections, people decided to kill people on the street in rallies, in political rallies. These people are all Muslim. Just because you have a difference in politics does not allow you to take somebody out. And we can go on and on and on for that. But the point here is the Messenger of God has taught his community that this is not a game. How do we know this? What can we learn from the story? The Ansari, although he was in the same position as Usama, he put his weapon away immediately. He's like, this is a red flag. In the middle of battle, I'm not going to engage with this. Although he witnessed exactly what Usama had witnessed. This man had killed some of your people, and he was upset just like Usama was upset. But he heard that sacred statement, La ilaha illallah, and he let go, and he stopped. The other thing is the fact that the news was not covered up. There's no cover up. We said part of corruption is covering things up. The Messenger of God heard about the report immediately. Although he already heard that your army had won. But Usama himself actually was feeling this sense of hesitation, and he was going back and forth with himself. And that tells us again that the Messenger of God taught this very clearly. There was no ambiguity about this. That's why it's so sick and very offensive when people talk about Islam being a violent way. And then some people are like, you guys are so violent, you kill each other. Not realizing that this is what? Completely prohibited in Islam. In Islam, you can't even hurt somebody's feelings, let alone take their lives away. And that's one of the biggest crimes, as we learn. Number 3, Usama ibn Zayd, as we said, is the messenger's grandson and the son of his adopted son, Zayd. They used to call him Usama ibn Zayd ibn Muhammad before adoption was removed. And by the way, in Islam, you're able to attribute yourself to your grandfather. So he could be Usama ibn Muhammad. And we take this from the messenger's story, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In one of the confrontations with the disbelievers, there was a rumor that he had died. So he shouted out and he says, "Ana an-nabiyyu la kadhib, ana ibn Abd al-Muttalib." I am the prophet and there is no lie about it, no doubt about it. I am the son of Abd al-Muttalib. Although, what's his father's name? Abdullah, the son of Abd al-Muttalib. So your grandfather is your father. That's also very powerful because it carries some meaning, which means your grandfather has rights over you. It's very important. After adoption was, the rule on adoption was changed, the Prophet ﷺ still had an emotional connection to Usama. And he loved him just like he loved his own children. So basically, we're talking about Usama is like Al-Hasan or Al-Hussein, and we already spoke about them too, right? You know how much the messenger loved these people. So he loved Usama that much. Yet, his love did not prevent him from calling a spade a spade. The Prophet ﷺ used to wash the face of Usama when Usama was a child, and he would say, لو كان أسامة جارية لحليته وكسوته وأعطيته. If Usama was a girl, I would have put jewelry on him, and I would have put nice dresses on him, and I would have given him money. Meaning I would have spoiled him, because again, it was very typical for them to spoil the girls, more than the boys at least. So he says, only if he was a girl, which means what? He had a very strong emotional attachment to him. Usama, as a child, one time falls down and he injures his face. So then the Messenger ﷺ himself, and again at that time they didn't have developed medicine. So whenever you get a cut in your body, someone has to administer a particular process of sucking the blood out with their lips, because that's the most gentle thing so they don't hurt you. Guess who did that for Usama? The Messenger of God. He took the blood out with his own blessed lips, so he can spit it out and it doesn't hurt the baby. Because they didn't have tools and they didn't have things that would not contaminate it. Now with the Prophet ﷺ, his lips, it means some of his saliva would go in there and be what? A form of treatment. When Usama became older, as he grew older, the Prophet's love for him increased. And that's how parents are with their children. It doesn't matter how old you get, they still love you like a baby, but your love now is extremely bigger. So Usama likewise had a special place in the Prophet's heart, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And like I said, that's why they used to call him Hibbu Rasulillah wa ibnu Hibbi Rasulillah. He had a special title, the beloved of the Messenger of God and the son of the beloved of the Messenger of God. He makes a mistake. The Messenger of God points it out, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, you may say, let's say I'm a teacher and one of my students makes a mistake, or I am a supervisor at work and one of my employees makes a mistake, and that event is recorded, and you guys are seeing me maybe in the security camera, or somebody writes a report and you're like, you know, he was very harsh with him. But again, I don't have a personal relationship. He's not my family. But here, when you realize how close Usama was to the Messenger of God, it shows you the impact of this particular back and forth and this conversation. Because of the status that Usama had with the Messenger of God. That did not limit the Prophet from calling him out, and did not stop him from apologizing and asking that the Messenger seeks forgiveness for him. And again, we said, he kept on repeating that statement, what will you do with La ilaha illallah if it comes before you on the Day of Judgment? Now, the particular event ends, and Usama still did not hear what he was wishing for. You know, the Sahaba, what they loved more than anything is whenever the Prophet would pray for them. Remember the story we said about that family? Prophet comes and knocking on their door and gives salam, and they don't respond. And he knocks on the door a third time and he gives salam. They don't respond. Knocks on the door, gives salam, and then he leaves, because that's the sunnah. Sunnah is you seek permission 3 times, nobody answers, nobody wants you to go, come on in, you leave. So then they rush to him and they said, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. They respond back. What happened to you guys? They said, we wanted to have extra prayers from you. You didn't pray for us 1 time, you prayed for us 3 times. So more than anything else, they desired that the Messenger of God would pray for them, especially in an event like this. This guy realizes, I committed a sin, I need God to forgive me, and what a better opportunity than for the Messenger of God to seek forgiveness for me. When does a messenger seeking forgiveness appear in the Quran? Yunus, okay. What does he do? Okay, that's his personal. He's seeking forgiveness for himself. Very good. He says, La ilaha illallah subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Right? La ilaha illa ant. There's nothing worthy of worship except you. You're perfect. I wronged myself. But I'm talking about, when does a prophet in the Quran seek forgiveness for others? What does Ibrahim say? وَاغْفِرْ لِأَبِي إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الضَّالِّينَ. Okay? Yeah, but the father did not actually ask for that, right? The father didn't believe in God. So that doesn't qualify. When does a prophet in the Quran get requested to seek forgiveness for someone who wronged themselves and they seek forgiveness? Yusuf and Yaqub, the children did a big mistake. What did they say to their father? Ya abana astaghfir lana. Right? Oh, our father, seek forgiveness for us. And the reason why they felt satisfied is because he did seek forgiveness for them. And Yusuf also forgave them as well. So when a prophet asks Allah to forgive you, the prophet's prayers are answered. So that's what he wanted. He wanted guaranteed forgiveness because he realizes the gravity of his sin. And if anyone is going to get this honor of having the prophet pray for them, it would be Usama himself, because how close he was to the Prophet ﷺ. But the Prophet did not give him his wish. This is not something that I'm going to accept, regardless of how close you are to me. And that's why he says, I wish I hadn't even embraced Islam yet. And this remained with him for the remainder of his life. You know, there was another event also in the battle, and this is important. And it tells you that the Prophet here is pointing something out, but he did not disown Usama. This is again how, let's reflect over our community and how we do things. The Prophet did not say, Usama is a kafir. He's not even Muslim, man. This guy he's not a Muslim. Did he do that? No, he just said, what are you going to do to answer for your sin? One time Khalid ibn al-Walid, again, a great general, he goes into a city and the people just were terrified. They said the wrong word. They said, Saba'na, Saba'na. Saba'na means we apostated. Now what they were intending was what? We became Muslim, because the common nomenclature in Arabia was, if you became Muslim, you're called Sabi', which means apostate, because you left your original religion. So they said, Saba'na, Saba'na. Khalid's like, okay. Wiped them out. The messenger heard about that. And he says, Allahumma inni abra'u ilayka mimma sana'a Khalid. Oh Allah, I am free of what Khalid did. He didn't say, I'm free of Khalid. Regardless of the crime, he's still a member of your community. Is that what Muslims do? Let's say one of the Muslims commits a crime. For political gain, what do the Muslims do? He's not one of us. Okay, like he just died. Are you guys going to wash him and bury him? Nope. No. People should learn a lesson. Who are you pleasing? Allah or somebody else? That's scary. Regardless of your differences with the person, they still have the rights of faith on you. It doesn't mean that you are justifying their actions, but it does not terminate their status as a believer. They still have rights over us. That's a side point. Number 4, if we were to analyze what takes place, we realize that Usama had so many excuses. He could have rationalized this in so many different ways. No doubt about it. Again, let's count all the excuses Usama had. Usama kills a person on the battlefield. He was a pagan by virtue of him being an enemy combatant. full of weaponry, killing the Muslims, and Usama witnessed some of the best believers dying before him. Their blood has been spilled with the weapons of this particular man and no one else. And he realizes how important this man was for his army. Remember, we said he is the first one in the charging and the first one in the retreat, basically the one that's covering his people's back. And Usama did that while his own, what are they called? They call compadres? Is that the word? Compadres. So the compadres of Usama had died right before him, and Usama's clothing is bloodied by the blood of his compadres. Again, I'm giving the same example. If a cop gets shot in front of his friend, his partner is going to lose it, right? And we'll give all types of excuses in our society for him. He was completely, whatever he did was completely legal. He had all the excuses in the world because he was defending one of his compadres. Again, we're talking about Usama here. Did he have any of these excuses? Then he mentions La ilaha illallah. He mentions the Shahada. And he says it clearly to defend himself and to just say, you know what, please leave me alone. He did not have certainty. We can almost guess that, right? Did the guy have certainty? Like if we were to do a survey here, you guys think the guy actually believed, like you decided to embrace Islam right there, like right before dying? Usually you want that to be a conscious decision where somebody does it out of out of complete comfort. But right now, usually you're not thinking straight at this moment. You're about to be killed and you're going to say, okay, I give you exactly what you want. That's what they do in torture, right? What happens in torture? They torture them so bad, and he tells them, look, whatever you want me to say, man, I'm going to say it. He's like, you want me to say I killed Abraham Lincoln? I did it. He's like, how did you do it? He died like 150 years ago. I did it. If that's what you want me to say, I did it. Right? Because of desperation. This guy clearly was desperate. So we're talking about all the excuses that Usama has. And the Messenger of God ﷺ closed the door on every single one. None of these are valid excuses. And then he teaches us a lesson. What's in people's hearts is only known by who? The one who knows the unseen. Who knows the unseen? Allah. And that's why what we're taught in Islam is we never judge what's in somebody's heart. That's why you can't say, I know their intention. That's so popular with us. I know why he did or why she did that. How do you know that? Only Allah knows that. Well, so today I was having a conversation with someone and they said, I know that these people wanted to harm me because I had a recording of a phone conversation that they had and they said they wanted to harm me. That's not evidence in Islam. Even if someone says they want to harm you, you still don't believe them. It doesn't mean that that's solid evidence because they can change their mind. But that's what happens with families. A lot of family problems and drama. In the early years of marriage, people say the worst things ever. And then 20 years down the line, people made up, people grew up, people matured, and you still bring things up from honeymoon. Right? Like, oh, when we went out on the honeymoon, your mom said this about me. What are you talking about? Yeah, she hated me from day one. We're over that already. We got 5 children. Come on, get over it. Don't get over it. So the Messenger of God ﷺ is telling us only Allah knows what's in people's hearts. And that's why he said specifically, did you open his heart to see if he says it from the bottom of his heart or lying out of desperation? Now, if all of these valid excuses were null and void, they're all valid, by the way. Every single one of these excuses is a valid excuse. They were all null and void. What this is telling us is blood is sacred, you don't spill blood. Life is sanctified and you don't take life away. In fact, in Islam, we can't even kill animals except with the permission of Allah. That's the whole point of our dietary restrictions. You don't kill an animal for fun. You don't just go hunting. Oh, let's go hunting. You guys see the hunting channel? There's a channel on TV. They just hunt and fish. So they kill the fish and then they drop it back in the sea. Why'd you do that? They hunt the deer and they just leave it out there. Why are you doing it? For fun. You guys see in Africa these people that go on illegal safaris, they killed a black giraffe, which is very rare. Her father had killed some type of elephant that's very rare. And they're proud of that. They take pictures, they have selfies, and that's it. They're not going to eat it. They're not going to do anything with it. So you just killed a life. So Islam cares about any living being, let alone a human life. And then on top of that, so this tells you how many layers of sanctity there is. Life in general, then human life, then a believer's life. May Allah guide us to recognize how sanctified life is. And the point here, the messenger wanted to close the doors because you're always going to find excuses. People always find excuses. He didn't want to leave that room to open up that door of excuses, because everybody's going to find an excuse. Well, I did this because the person deserved it, and he did this, and she did that, and so on and so forth. And of course, this is what we see right now in many Muslim societies whenever blood is spilled, whenever there is internal chaos. It's very easy for people to say, those people are hypocrites. And the other side says the same exact thing. But what did we say about hypocrites? Didn't we have a story about the hypocrites a few weeks ago? The king, the one who was almost crowned king. He was an open hypocrite. He cursed the messenger of God, and the messenger still prayed for him, gave him his own cloak to cover his body with after he died. But now for us, we have any difference with somebody, they're from a different political party. Okay, take them all out. Not just them and their families and their associates, guilty by association. May Allah protect us and guide us. So that's why Islam says don't even open up that door. No matter what your difference with people is, leave them to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ clearly closed that door off. The last lesson that he has here is, if this was, again, and I kind of mentioned this in passing, if this was the reprimand for someone who simply says La ilaha illallah in the last moment of his life, and out of desperation and fear of getting killed, how about people who only knew La ilaha illallah throughout their lives? That's what we have to ask. Because again, in the Muslim community, internal strife right now is people who've been Muslim all their lives. These are not brand new Muslims. And unfortunately, the ones doing the killing sometimes are what? The brand new Muslims. Very ironic. So don't mess with that. We ask Allah to protect us from ever spilling blood, from ever harming another human and harming any believers. And the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يزال المرء في فسحة من دينه ما لم يصب دما حراما. You will continue to have an opportunity for salvation as long as you do not spill sacred and sanctified blood. So this is not a light matter. I know this was very heavy and graphic today, but I wanted to mention this due to so many things that we see nationally and internationally, especially in light of certain political situations. Like some people today, I was just hearing commentary. I don't even know the results. Who knows the results of the elections in Pakistan today? Who won? None of you guys care about that? The biggest Muslim populated country in the world. And we don't even follow up their affairs. Why is that? Because we're kind of like in a state of what? State of despair. It's like, man, even if good people win, what are they going to do? They're going to topple them, right? There's going to be some type of military coup and so on and so forth. So some people commented, they said, even if so-and-so wins, the army is going to go and... Earlier I heard another commentary. They said, may Allah protect so-and-so, I'm afraid somebody's going to take him out. Who thinks this way? This only happens in what types of societies? It's really sad. So you have someone that people may think is good for their country, but somebody decides to take him out. So may Allah protect us. May Allah allow us to recognize truth as truth and to follow it, and to recognize falsehood as falsehood and keep us away from it. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ahu wa arina al-batila batila warzuqna ijtinab wa la taj'alhu multabisan alayna fanadil. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. We ask you, Allah, to give us the best of this life and the best of the next life, and to protect us from the fire. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. We've wronged ourselves, O Allah. We confess our sins to you and to no one else. If you don't forgive us and have mercy on us, we'll be amongst the losers. رَبَّنَا أَعِنَّا عَلَى ذِكْرِكَ وَشُكْرِكَ وَحُسْنِ عِبَادَتِكَ. We ask, O Allah, to help us to remember you and to mention you at all times, to be grateful to you for all your blessings, and to worship you in the best of ways, in ways that are pleasing to you according to the way shown by your Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wasallam. Bless the Messenger Muhammad who taught us these great lessons. Bless his family and his righteous followers. Increase him in good. Increase him in protection. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allah is far above any imperfection. We testify that he is the only one deserving of worship. We praise him. We seek his forgiveness. And we repent to him. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله